In this video, I'm going to talk about phospholipids, which are a type of lipid that are found in cell membranes. These phospholipids are found in the cell membranes of both animals and plants. Like triglycerides, phospholipids contain a molecule of glycerol, which is a 3-carbon organic molecule. However, unlike triglycerides, which had 3 fatty acids, phospholipids only have 2 fatty acids. In the place of the 3rd fatty acid, phospholipids have a phosphate group, which is a phosphorus atom covalently bonded to 4 oxygen atoms. So the chemical formula is PO4 minus. They also have a positively charged or polar group attached to this phosphate group. So as you can see here, we have the glycerol. That's the main backbone of the molecule. And we have 2 nonpolar hydrocarbon tails attached to those. So those are fatty acids. We have the phosphate group covalently bound to one of the carbons at one end. And then again, we have a positive or polar group, which is attached to that phosphate group. So if we look at the overall molecule, which you can see in the diagram above me, we have a polar head and a nonpolar tail. So this gives the phospholipids a very special property. They basically have 2 types of properties. They're attracted to water at the polar head end, and they're attracted to other lipids at the nonpolar end, as we can see here. So this is really important because this chemical property allows these phospholipids to be the primary component of cell membranes. So again, we have the presence of charged groups at one end of the phospholipid and a nonpolar hydrocarbon tails at the other end. So the charged end of the molecule is hydrophilic. It can associate well with water. The nonpolar end of the molecule is hydrophobic. It does not associate well with water. Again, hydrophobic literally means water-fearing. And so this special property is important for the formation of cell membranes. So if you were to take some phospholipids and put them in a test tube with some water, they would automatically orient themselves such that the hydrocarbon tails would be close to each other because they're essentially like molecules associating with like molecules. So these are nonpolar molecules, parts of the molecules associating with each other. And then the polar heads face towards water molecules. So in a cell membrane, that makes a lot of sense because the inside of a cell has water. It's an aqueous environment. So the polar heads face inwards towards the inside of the cell. And outside of a cell in your body, you also have an aqueous environment, meaning a water-filled environment. And the polar heads will also face out there. And what you have sandwiched between these layers of polar heads, of course, are all the hydrocarbon tails pointing at each other. And so that forms a sort of nonpolar middle of the cell membrane. And that's very important. This is actually a very important property of cell membranes that leads to things like selectivity in terms of what can get across the membrane, which is something we'll discuss in actually a different chapter, but that's going to come up eventually. So it's very important that we understand the structure of a cell membrane of the cells in our body. At its basis, you have this lipid bilayer that forms the cell membrane. Okay, that's it for this video.